Thank you. Please sit down.
Xin mọi người ngồi xuống ạ. Cảm ơn.
Please listen to the following teaching with the proper motivation of attaining enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings.
Xin hãy lắng nghe bài pháp thoại sau với động cơ đúng đắn, tức nghĩa rằng mình phát khởi mong muốn đạt giác ngộ vì lợi lạc của hết thảy hữu tình chúng sinh.
So the topic of today's session, the topic is the Precious Garland to the Supreme Path, as we all know, and so this will be the path, or this will be the instruction which we will use to attain enlightenment, and within the Precious Garland of the Supreme Path, there are many sections, and so at the moment we are covering the section of not giving up, and we have covered up to 8 of them. Not giving up, what things not to be given up. Now we will, from today we will start from point number 9 of the not giving up things. Number 9 is, I'm not sure if we covered number 9 last time or not, but I think we will go from number 9. Number 9, right? Last week?
Last week I think is the number 10 we can cover.
We covered.
I don't mistake.
Oh, okay.
Cover.
Okay.
10 of this.
Okay. So, okay. Right. So, okay. Then number 9 and 10. Okay. Yeah. Last week I think we hurried up and speak. Okay. Then we can go from number 10 then. I mean the next chapter, which will be the 10 things to realize, or 10 things to know, 10 things one must know, or 10 things one must realize. The next chapter. Okay, so the first of the 10 things to realize is called so that all the appearances or the things that we see are appearances, and appearances are not real. All the appearances all the appearances that we see are illusory, and so therefore they are not real, and one must know that. So that is the first teaching, or the first thing for the practitioner to realize. So I want to remind you once again that this is for practitioners. So some of the methods taught here, for example, like if you remember last week's teaching, we covered like number 6 and number 7, like thinking of illnesses and all the bad things as good thing, all the negativities as a blessing. So that in our ordinary day-to-day life, it is impossible to think like that. But if you want to practice the Dharma, then you should train yourself in such a way so that when things like this rise up, when incidents like this arise, you will be able to tackle them. You will be able to take care of them. So therefore, you will see a lot of things like that. So today's the first thing to know. Today's topic is 10 things to realize or know about. And the first one is that all things are appearances, and therefore, since it's merely an appearance, what we see and what they are different, are not the same. And so therefore, they are deceptive. So if you think whatever you see is the truth, then you make a big mistake. What happens is when you so you have to think of this in two levels. One is the ultimate level, and one is the conventional level. On the ultimate level, things do not exist as they appear. When we see things, for example, if you look at the screen in front of you, it would seem like the screen is there by itself. If it's a mobile screen or a television screen, or maybe just a book that you are holding in your hand, or maybe the voice that you are hearing, my voice. So it appears as if it is solid, if it's on its own. But actually, the voice that you are hearing, or the image in front of you on your screen, they are made up of a number of hundreds of thousands of atoms and molecules, and also they are not there by themselves. They were formed by different causes and conditions. So even when we see something or when we hear something on our day-to-day basis, we feel and we see them as if they are solidly there, as if their reality, as if the appearances that we see are solidly there. But the thing is, things are not solidly out there. Everything that we hear or see is an appearance. It's a mere appearance. It's an appearance in the sense. For example, I think we covered that last week also, but since this is an important topic, I will say once more. This is like a projector. Our mind projects certain things, and what we see is what is actually projected by our mind. For example, when we look at somebody, let's say a dog. So most of us find a dog very cute. And the appearance of the dog, when we look at the dog, we don't, on some occasions, we will know that if the dog is sick. But most of the time, when we look at the dog, we have no idea what kind of mental state the dog is going through, or if the dog is, what the dog is thinking, or whether the dog is sick or not. We have no idea. If you just look at the image of the dog or the appearance of the dog, it would seem like it is perfectly fine. Or let's take for an example a companion or a partner or a colleague at the at your workplace, and so what you see of that person, your colleague, is actually the projection of how you see them. So you project the person that you see in a certain way, and you see what you project. So when you see something, you are actually seeing the image of a projection of what you are thinking. So therefore, this goes with everything. When you apply that to anything in the world, whatever you are seeing is actually the projection. You can see, or you can define anything in this world through you. So when you say, oh, this is black or this is white, or let's say when you define something as black, when you define something as white, when you define something as beautiful, when you define something as salty, right? Or when you define something as spicy, when you define something as bad, when you define something as an enemy, everything. You do that through your thinking, through your projection. So when you remove yourself out of the picture, if you remove yourself out of the picture, then the things will no longer be black, no longer be spicy, no longer be whatever you have thought or seen it to be. So whatever we see is actually the projection of our own mind. When we see things the way we project them. So therefore, whatever we see is merely an appearance, and so therefore, and therefore they are not true. And since what we see and what they are not not in line, not together, what we are seeing and what the things really are not on the same level. Because of that, they are deceptive. Because they are deceptive, one should not rely upon the appearances alone. So the first two points, the first two points actually deals with the two very important parts of points from the Mahayana philosophy, which is Dhamma in Tibetan, which means no truth. So no truth is, or I mean, the literal translation is no truth, but you can think of that as unreal, not real. And this is actually is a reference to emptiness. So things do not have an inherent existence. So therefore, their inherent existence is unreal. So therefore, but we always see everything as having a realistic existence. And so therefore, inherent existence, which is not real. So therefore, things are called unreal or no truth. And the second very important point is no self. So no real or no truth and no self. So these two very important point in the Mahayana philosophy is covered in the first 2 points. So normally, most of you have heard of emptiness, right? So emptiness is being empty of a true nature that is existing inherently. So when we say no truth or emptiness in Buddhism, we are not talking about just mere or ordinary emptiness. So emptiness is not about nothingness, as we have repeatedly heard. Also, when we say no truth, we're not talking about there not being any truth in general. Of course, there is truth, there is general, there is ordinary truth, there is conventional truth, there is ultimate truth. But you will often read in the Mahayana text, no self and no truth. So this is no truth or unrealness is a reference to emptiness. And emptiness, as we just said, doesn't mean nothingness. Emptiness means being empty of, having an inherent, truthful, realistic existence. So that is why it's called no truth. So the first thing we cover from today's topic is no truth, Dembarmeba, no real or unreal or no truth. That's the first one we covered. And the second one we are going to cover is no self. Now we have to understand this again. When we say no self, we are not. So if you take everything literally, then this will be a big. There will be a big confusion. So in Buddhism, you will always hear about no self, but it doesn't mean self. It doesn't mean that there is no self in the ordinary or in the conventional sense. Like, for example, I, myself, you, yourself, they, themselves, it, itself. So in that case, in that sense, which is in the conventional sense, there is self. But at the ultimate level, there is no self. So you have to again understand when Buddhism says no self, it doesn't speak in the, it is not referring in the conventional sense. In the conventional sense, Buddhism accepts self in all forms. But when it comes to the ultimate sense, then the notion of self is no longer accepted. So you will read about no self and no truth all the time in the Mahayana philosophical text, but you have to understand what it is, what it actually means when we say no self. So once again, no self doesn't mean non-existence of a self in the conventional level, but rather it means no self in the ultimate level. So how come there is no self in the ultimate level? Okay, we will go into this now. In the ultimate, so no self and no truth are quite similar. Sometimes if you read in the Madhyamika, the Madhyamika, the middle way view, you will hear the no self is also referred to as no self. The no truth. No truth is sometimes no truth and no self are used simultaneously, interchangeably. So we use the same word for both things. If you read the Madhyamika books, anyway, this is going too technical, so I'm not going to go too deep with that. So no self means, in the ultimate sense, there's no self. In the conventional sense, there is a self. So get this clearly, okay? In the ultimate sense, no self. In the conventional sense, yes, there is a self. Myself, yourself, themself, itself, everything is self is always there. So when we say no self in the ultimate sense, what we are talking about is so we are actually referring to the identity of when we try to identify the self in the ultimate sense, we do not find it. Or let me tell you how Buddhism refutes refutes the notion of a self in the ultimate sense. So self is the very being of a certain thing. For example, if you look for the self in the person, so prior to Buddhism, all the other schools, they accept a self, so they call it Atma. Atma meaning so Atma can sometimes is referred to as soul, because the soul is seen as the very identity of the self. Because when you die, everything is burned, and everything is not you, but the soul is you. The only thing that can be identified as you or me is the soul. That is what philosophers before Buddhism says. But then Buddhism came, and Buddhism says even the self the so-called soul is not the self. And then there are a number of debate as to how to dissolve the soul as the identity of the self. So in that case, if there is okay, so in the ultimate level, there's no soul or there's no self, because if you are to identify, it's very similar to the previous the no truth thing. So if there is a thing called self in the ultimate level, if there is a self, if there is something to be pinpointed as you, if there is something to be pinpointed as a cup, then what is the cup? Is the shape of the cup a cup? Is the the structure, all the atoms and molecules that are formed within the cup, is that a cup? That is not a cup. We know that. So when we disintegrate each and every pieces that actually made up what is known as a person or a cup, nothing constitute by itself as a self. So therefore, the identification of self in the ultimate level is disputed through this method in Buddhism. So let me just put this, to put it simply. So it's okay if you don't, if it doesn't make any sense to you, or if you don't understand it, don't worry about it at all. The first two topics that we just covered, it's so deep and so extensive. Actually, we spent about 20 years in the monastery studying about this. So yeah, so you tell them that and you translate. So the first two topics, the no self, the no truth, and the no self notion, it's so difficult. So even to have an intellectual understanding, it takes about, well, for people like us, it takes about 20 years to understand it, even intellectually. But once you understand it, it's very easy to apply it in real life. Now, the following instructions, number 3 and onwards, they are easy to understand, but then very difficult to apply in real life. So now we will go to number 3, which is all the thoughts, all the conceptual thoughts that arise in our mind are momentary, are temporary and momentary. And so therefore, they are temporary because they are induced by causes. And in other words, they rely on causes and conditions to appear, to arise in our mind. So therefore, all our thoughts are temporary. So why this is why this is important? This is important because if you have let's say, a very negative thought, let's say you are, if you have to practice when you are not in a negative state. You have to practice. All the practices should be, well, most of the majority of mind training practices, Buddhist practices, the training should be done when your mind is at neutral, not too sad, not too excited. That is the best time to train. But application, that's what you have to do. Application is like medicine. So you apply the medicine when you are actually sick, right? But before you have the medicine in your hand, you need to prepare the chemicals. You have to make the medicine. You have to mix the ingredients. So like that, this is the training part. The training part should be done when you are actually not sick or not mentally sick, meaning when you are not too excited, not too sad in that case. So this book is for training purposes. This is instruction for training. So what we do is we train our mind to think that all our thoughts are, our conceptual thoughts are born out of, are generated by, rise from causes and conditions. So therefore, they are all temporary. So if we train ourselves in that, every day, then what happens is when we go through a very emotional moment, let's say we are going through we're going through grief. We lose someone, and then let's say our parents or our loved one. So when we are going through grief, then we know, okay, grief is also a conceptual thought that is dependent upon cause and condition, and this will also go. So what happens here is whatever difficulty you are going through, you know that, oh, this is also go away. This will also go away. So there is no point in being in too much grief. Of course, when someone, when a loved one, when someone you love passes away, of course you are sad for them. You know, that is understandable, and that is, you know, you cannot be indifferent. You have compassion for them, you pray for them. That is recommended. But if a number of us, when someone whom we love very much, when they part away from us, then we become broken-hearted, and then we lose all hopes, and then sometimes we kill ourselves because of that. So these things are, if we train ourselves during our neutral state of mind to think, okay, all thoughts are dependent upon cause and conditions, and so therefore, without the cause and conditions, they will go away. So therefore, whatever depressing moment that I'm going through is all momentary, and so I can pass over that. If you train yourself to think that way, then when such misfortune falls upon you, then you will be ready to take on. So that is why we do the. So that is the importance of instruction number 3. So as I said, it's easy to understand, but very difficult to apply. So we must train. Okay. So now number 4. So they are all connected, okay? The first we say, whatever you see is deceptive. Whatever you see is you see the appearances, and the appearances are not as real as you see them. So therefore, they are all deceptive. The first thing. Second, because all things are appearances, that all the things that we see appear to our mind. The mind is also empty of having a self in the ultimate sense, and so therefore the mind is empty. Right? Now, the mind, within the mind, there we have the different conceptual thoughts. So when we see, most of the time when we have an understanding of emptiness, or when you have an understanding of something bad or good, it all comes from our thoughts. So the thought themselves, even though the thoughts are not only empty of having inherent existence in the ultimate sense, but the thoughts are also momentary in the conventional sense. So therefore, all the thoughts, all the negative thoughts, let's say depression, or some bad thoughts, some the grief, losing some loved one, like that. So grief is temporary, and suffering, the miserable thoughts are temporary because they are dependent on cause and condition. So next, the question comes: okay, cause and conditions. The mind is temporary. Our thoughts are temporary because they depend on cause and condition. Let's say, like, yeah, I'm going through grief, right? So much pain, and my pain is dependent upon cause and conditions. That's why I'm going through pain. But the cause and conditions, like for a reason why the reason why I am sad, the reason why I am in such a pain is because, okay, I'm sick, or because I lost someone, because I lost something, right? So it is now goes to something external. I lost a loved one outside of you. I lost some money outside of external. I lost an opportunity outside. So the cause and conditions are outside. The cause and conditions of our mind being in depression is actually outside, right? Now the question comes up, it's all outside. What can I do about this? I lost my money. Now what can I do about this thing? All I can do is worry about it. There's nothing else I can do about it. It's out of my mind. If it's within my mind, if by thinking of money, money comes back, then I can think about it. But there's nothing I can do. And if my loved one is outside of me. So what happens here is the problem that you are facing with your mind, your mind is inside of you, right? But the problems that you are facing is outside of you. Even those things, the cause and conditions of the problem that you are facing in your mind, they are also momentary. They are also impermanent. So therefore, they will also change. So that is the number 4. So number 4 is the problems that you see outside, because of which you are depressed, because of which you are worrying, are also impermanent. So they will also change. And either they will change by themselves, or you will lose your interest in them. For example, that is what happened to most of us when we lose someone or something, when we have a breakup. For the first few days or few months or whatever, you brood over it. You are very worried. But then eventually you find something else to distract towards, and then you lose interest in the whatever you have lost in the past, and sometimes you forget about it. Sometimes you forget about it within a few weeks or a few years or a few days, depending upon how much you are attached to that thing. So even the external things that is affecting your mental attitude are also impermanent, just like the mind itself. So therefore, one should not brood over it. So the mind, so the external things, the mind is reliant. The mind or the conceptual thoughts are reliant upon external objects, and the external objects. So when we say external objects, like for example, external objects like table or tree, that doesn't really matter much. But things, the pleasure that we derive from trees, or let's say a table, or maybe the displeasure or suffering we derive from heat, from hunger, from all those things. So these are very much aligned, very much related to our welfare, well-being, whether we become happy or unhappy. So things that make us happy or not happy are not necessarily out there, even though external objects are out there, but the the potential to make us happy or unhappy is not necessarily out there within the external objects. So the tree can, even though the tree can make us happy or unhappy, but it's not the tree itself that is making us happy or unhappy. It depends on the mood that we are in. If we are in a good mood, maybe by seeing a tree, we feel very relaxed and so on and so forth. But sometimes when we are feeling lonely, we look at a tree, and the tree is also standing by itself, and then we kind of feel more depressed. I'm lonely, the tree is lonely, everything is lonely, everything is so, so we think like that. And also depends on what kind of situation you are. If you are feeling so cold, then maybe you don't want to be under a tree. You don't want to be under a shade. You want to be under the sun, the heat. But if it's too much heat, then you want to remove yourself from the heat. You want to go to somewhere shade. So shade or sunlight doesn't by itself make you happier or unhappier. It is the situation. It depends on the situation that you are in. If you are depending on the situation, if you are in a bad mood, it will the external objects will make you unhappier. If you are in a good mood, the external objects can make you happier. So therefore, things that make you happy or unhappy are the very first line, are aligned very much dependent on your mind. It depends on your karma, positive or negative karma, and the imprint of the positive and negative karma is actually embedded or ingrained in your mental stream, in your mind. So positive and negative karma are embedded within your mind. So therefore, your mind creates bad and good karma, which creates bad and good experiences. So therefore, it is all in the mind. So it all comes back to the mind. So yeah, thank you. Today's topic is very difficult, the first two especially. So I will stop here and then open the floor for questions.
I have a question.
Please.
Okay, so first of all, would you please verify whether I'm correct or not? But so far, I heard everything is like a reason from the mind. All the source of your suffering is arise from the mind. So is it the same thing as Yogacara, mind only school? Because I just learned about Madhyamaka with a Ninma teacher, and then so if it's true, then what is the big deal between the conventional way of accepting the relative truth versus the mind only school saying that we're trying to do everything is from the mind, which is also relative only, and we use that to get into the absolute truth. What's the big difference that Madhyamaka doesn't accept the the mind only school?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Very, very observant question. Thank you.
Xin cô có thể dịch cái câu hỏi của cô được không ạ? Xin cô có thể dịch luôn sang tiếng Việt giúp cho con được không ạ?
Dạ thưa. Ok thì mình mới học được cái trường cái chung quán luận của ngài chung quán luận Mula Madhyamaka của ngài Long Thọ truyền xuống cho và được ngài Chandrakirti gọi là luận giải, rồi ngài Mipham Rinpoche giải thích lại. Thì cái trường phái mà chung luận quán đó thì không có chấp nhận là tất cả mọi sự việc đau khổ của chúng sinh đó, từ cái mà gọi là sự thật tương đối đó, tất cả những cái sự đau khổ đó đều là do tâm của mình tạo ra. Trong khi đó thì cái trường phái Madhyamaka đó thì cho rằng đó là họ không có chấp nhận cái sự thật tương đối là cái tâm nó tạo ra tất cả, mà tất cả nó đều là nó không có tương đối, họ không có chấp nhận tương đối. Thành ra đó là, nhưng mà mình hỏi đó là nếu như vậy á thì cái sự khác biệt đó nó là do nó có cái gì mà nó khác biệt không? Một đằng đó là tại vì mình nghĩ tâm mình nghĩ ra hết tất cả mọi sự đều là đau khổ, giống như là thầy nói sofa 4 cái điểm thầy vừa giảng, và cái conventional truth đó là cái sự thật tương đối, mà tại vì họ nghĩ là họ không có cần phải giống như là giải thích, nhưng mà nếu mà mình nghĩ làm sao đó thì là nó là như vậy đó, mình không có cần phải gọi là bàn luận giải đáp đó. Đại khái là trong Madhyamaka chung luận quán họ dạy như vậy, thì mình hỏi là như vậy thì là nó đâu có cái gì khác nhau đâu, một đằng nó cũng vẫn là cái mình giữ cái sự thật tương đối đó để mình đi tới sự thật tuyệt đối. Thì cái vấn đề mà mình hiểu theo cái conventional truth, hoặc là mình hiểu theo là tại cái tâm mình nó tạo ra, đều nó cũng chỉ là một cách để đi tới sự thật tuyệt đối mà thôi. Ok chị.
Okay.
Dạ.
So thank you for the question. The biggest difference between the Yogacara, or the actual name is Chittamatrin in Sanskrit. It's called Chittamatrin, which means mind only. Chitra being mind, and Chitta being mind, and Matra being only, the mind only. Yogacara means the school of yoga, the school of yoga practitioners. So which is also a synonym for mind-only school. Anyway, so the biggest difference between the mind-only school, the Chittamatrins, and the Madhyamika, the middle way philosophers, is that, as we covered today, so most of the Tibetan text, that Mahayana Tibetan text actually adheres to the Madhyamika view. And just like that, this book also adheres to the Madhyamika view. And so in that sense, we remember in the first line of today's, the first point in today's session, which was the no truth or inherent existence, nor the negation of inherent existence, so that things do not exist on its own. Things do not exist by itself. Things do not have an inherent existence of its own. So that idea is actually not accepted by the Yogacara, or the mind-only school. So the mind-only school believes that things, even though things are, so the mind-only doesn't mean things are not out there. So this is again one big misconception. People think when they say mind only, they think, oh, everything is everything is mind, so there's nothing out there. It's like a dream. When you have a dream, everything within the dream world is part of the dream and not part of the external world. So when people say mind only, they think that mind only means everything happens in the mind and nothing outside. So that is not the case. In mind only school, what it means is everything that we see out there is still out there, but it's created by the mind. It doesn't mean everything that we see out there is mind only. That is not the meaning of mind only. Mind only means, the mind only school asserts that everything we see out there is still out there, but is made only by the mind. So that is the meaning of mind only school. And if you go a little bit further, so this is, there's a huge dispute. It's a topic of disputation between the Madhyamika and others, the Chittamatrin, the mind-only school, and other school. So what they say is, when a mind is formed, when a mental factor is formed, for example, let's say the screen in front of you, right? So when I see the screen in front of me, two things pop up. Two things pop up simultaneously at the same time. So there is the imprint for me to see. The imprint for me to see. The potential for me to see the screen in front of me. There's a potential aspect. So that potential actually separates into two forms. One goes into the material, the external object itself, and it turns into the screen, and that's why we see the screen. That's why the screen appears to us. And another portion of the potential to see the screen, which has been the imprint of which has been left eons and eons behind, a long time ago, turns into the mind, the mental perception of seeing the object. Now you might argue, okay, eons and eons ago, there is no screen, right? Like 10 years, maybe like 50 years ago, there's no mobile phone and anything. So how can you leave the imprint? So mobile phone is what? A mobile phone is made up of different atoms and so on and so forth. So there's color, there is the shape and all that. So those shapes, blue color, white color, yellow color, those we have seen eons ago. Yellow, white, all those colors are there since time immemorial. Shapes are there since time immemorial. So the imprints of shapes and forms and color and sizes were all imprinted in our mind. And when we call this that when the time comes for when the time comes for one to see an object matures, okay, I will repeat it. When the time comes for a person to see an object matures, when the time comes for the person to see an object matures, that potential to see an object turns into two things. One into the object, external object, and one into the potential, the ability to see, which is in the mind. This is what the mind-only school exerts. So not all the mind-only school, but there is a section between majority, a great section of the mind-only school, they exert that. In any case, mind-only doesn't mean mind-only, okay? Literally. So mind-only means everything that we see is created by the mind. That is the meaning of mind only. Now, the difference between mind only and the Madhyamika school. So I will just go generally because within Madhyamika school, there are different subsections, okay? Within Madhyamika school, what happens is the way Madhyamika school exerts things, objects, is that objects are outside, external. They are there, and mind is here, objects are there. But the objects are verified as object, or the objects are validated as objects through the labelization or through the designation made by the mind. Objects are outside, mind is inside, but the verification of the object is actually made by the mind. So without the mind, there is no object. It doesn't mean the object is created by the mind, but as I said earlier, projected, or in the sense of, for example, in a total darkness, we cannot see anything. But if you point a light, wherever you point the light at, that will appear. So just like that, things coming into, it doesn't mean that whatever you see in the light, whatever you see in the darkness with the help of light is not there before the light is shed open. It is still there even before you shed the light. Whatever object is still there. But when you shed the light, it appears, it is projected outside. So like that, whatever objects that we see, irrespective of, so the term's a little bit different. So the one I used was an example. So example and reality are not absolutely same. So the reality is, I mean, in real case scenario, what happens is the objects that we see, the appearances are there. It is not created by the mind, but it is projected by mind in the sense of shedding light. So think of the example that I just used. So that is one key difference between Madhyamika and the Chitta Matrins. And one more thing, of course, okay, most important difference is Madhyamika doesn't believe in inherent existence. Chitta Matrins do. Big difference. Second thing, mind only doesn't mean mind only. Okay, mind only means things are outside. Things are there, but they are reliable to the mind. Both Madhyamika and Chitta Matrin asserts that external objects are
reliable, dependent upon the mind. That is same for both of them. For the Chitta Matrins, for the mind-only school, the objects are somewhat created by the mind. The external objects are created by the internal mind. For the Madhyamika, the external objects are not created by the mind, but it is somewhat initiated or activated by the mind, like shedding a light upon an object that is in the darkness. So that is the key difference. And there are actually more differences, but these are the two key differences here.
But the thing is in relation to, because the ultimate path to enlightenment is to get into absolute truth. Now, whether you use your mind as the way to the absolute truth, or you accept the conventional way of, seeing the relative truth, is still get into the absolute truth. So I don't see any difference. And then, I don't understand, why it is a big fuss about the difference between the two.
Okay, I got it. So two things. For a practitioner, it may be not much of difference. If you are a practitioner or if you are a casual observer, okay? Two things. If you are a practitioner and if you are a casual observer, it may be of not much difference. So these are, you have to think, Yogacara, mind only, the four tenets of Buddhist school, right? Mind only, anyway, I'm not gonna. So the they're called Vibhashiks, the Sautantrikas, the Chitta Matrins, and the Madhyamika, the four schools. So they are philosophical schools. So they go on within a philosophical school, the argument is usually, most of the time it's technical, and a number of time it's technical. And as far as number of time, it's technical as well as the techniques. So the techniques to reach up, it's like this. You have to make up number 10. So you can make, there is a number of way to come to the conclusion of 10. You can say 5 plus 5 is 10. You can say 8 plus 2 is 10. You can say 10 minus 20 is 10. You can say 90 minus 100 is 10. So there is like millions of way to come to the conclusion, which is number 10. So all different schools are actually going through different ways of positioning, coming to the conclusion of number 10. And so depending on the way, so they, pretty much assert that their the method is the quickest. And as far as the Tibetan Buddhism is concerned, we rely on the path or the solution or the methodology ascribed by Chandrakirti and so on and so forth, the Madhyamika philosophy. And but even within Tibetan Buddhism, there are a number of great scholars who actually subscribe to the Chitta Matrin school rather than the mind-only school rather than the Madhyamika school. Now coming back to the point, the relative truth and ultimate truth. So ultimate goal. So we use the word ultimate in many cases in Tibetan, and also in English. In Tibetan we use them lightly, so therefore it is also used lightly in English as well. But what one has to understand is ultimate. When we use the term ultimate in the sense of ultimate goal, and when we use the term in the sense of ultimate object, as in the form of an subject-object matter, they are actually two totally different things. When we say the ultimate goal, we are talking about the sort of the final goal. That is as far as it gets. So the final goal is known as ultimate goal. So the ultimate truth, as we call it, realization of ultimate truth, which is emptiness. So in that sense, there is an ultimate truth. But when we say there is no ultimate truth, we say there is an ultimate, we describe ultimate truth, and also we negate ultimate truth. Even though the term ultimate is used lightly, we have to understand that it has different connotation at different different situations. So when we say ultimately things do not exist, we are talking about if you look for the corners of a thing. For example, if you look for this is a pen, right? There's no question about that. But if you are to find the ultimate reality of the pen in the sense of what is the pen, which part of this is pen? Where can I find the penness out of this thing? So the tip is not the pen. If you are to look for the very essence of penness within the pen, you will never find it. In that sense, there is no ultimate truth. But the very fact that there is no such thing as a penness in the pen is the final truth. This is as far as you can get. So this is the final. So therefore, this is the final truth. So therefore, this is the ultimate truth. So in that sense, there is an ultimate truth. And the ultimate truth and the conventional truth are like, a vehicle and the destination, a journey or the path and the destination. So the path is very important to get to the destination. Without the path, you will never get to the destination. But the path alone is not the main point of interest here. If you get distracted in the path, if you stay too long in the path, if you have a too long a rest stop, if you stay too long in the path, then it's a big problem, because you have to actually get to the destination. So the destination is the ultimate truth. The path is the conventional truth. Both are important in their respective terms, but the destination is the most important part, right? So therefore, the ultimate truth is where you should be getting to. But in order to get there, you have to go through this line, which is the conventional truth. So one cannot do without the other.
Thank you, Rinpoche.
Thank you. Thank you for the long. Thank you, Hong. It's very long.
Yes,
I know.
yes, I can
Thank you.
explain to her a little bit. Really difficult to understand.
Yeah, it is okay. It was a very long explanation, so thank you, Hong. Yeah. So there is a question. There's a very short question. I will answer that, and then I think there's a question from Facebook, which Yen, I think you will post it later after this, so you can ask. Okay, so the question from Kimley is, Rinpoche, as I understand, body is form, body, okay, mind and soul, okay. Soul is Buddha nature, but I hear you mention today soul is not self. Okay, so, okay, make things clear. First things first, soul is not even, let alone soul being a self. In Buddhism, we don't accept soul even, right? We don't accept the notion of a soul in Buddhism. So in reference to soul, so there are many different way to refer to a soul or a spirit. Maybe not necessarily in the form way in which the Christianity expresses it, but in the form where Indian, we call them Indic wisdom, right? Indian wisdom. Like when Buddhism first came, there was a lot of non-Buddhist Indian philosophies. So in that sense, the way they describe soul is totally different from how the Christianity or any other they describe. So when we say, the Atma, which means soul or self, in a sense, that is actually disputed by the Buddhist. Anyway, so the soul, the main reason there is no soul is if there is a soul which is separate from the mind and the body, then what happens is just like identifying yourself, you will need to identify something as the soul, and you cannot find it. When you go deeper and deeper, you will not find the self. And if there is a self that remains, then that self, if the self is, well, in the Indian tradition, prior to Buddhism, the notion of self or notion of soul is that soul is eternal. If the soul is eternal, then the soul has a cause or not, cause and condition. If the soul has a cause, and if the soul has a cause, and if the soul is relying on the cause, then the soul by itself cannot be what we call the soul is reliant on a cause. That means the soul is dependent on a cause, and without the cause, the soul will fall apart. And if there is a cause for the soul, which is eternal, then there should be an eternal cause for the soul. If there is an eternal cause, and if there is an eternal cause, then the very notion or the very idea of cause and condition will fall apart. Because cause and condition means something creates something, and then it degenerates. When something is created by another, for example, when a seed, you have a seed of a mango seed, and the mango seed transforms into the mango tree, and the seed is no longer there. So it changes form, it changes itself. Maybe the essence is there, but still, it changes form. Similarly, the cause cannot be eternal. If a cause is eternal, then the cause cannot create, or a cause cannot be the causal factor of another matter. So in that sense, the soul is disputed by Buddhism. And so therefore, soul is not self, let alone soul being a self. The soul is not even accepted in Buddhist philosophy. So instead of soul, we talk about consciousness. And when we talk of consciousness, we are not talking about consciousness as being eternal. Consciousness, we call Simgi Gu, which means the stream of consciousness. There's a line of consciousness. It's like a stream of river. So, when you look at a river just like that, it seems like it's just one big water, one big, one large solid object. But actually, it's different objects, different small water molecules coming from the upper stream, maybe from the glacier, and to the going to the ocean. So it's different water molecules appearing as one water body. Even though the whole stream of river is water, but it's not one whole water body. They are changing, they are constantly changing, and they are constantly evolving, from the glacial state to the ocean state. They are both water, but when they are in the glacial state condition, it's pure and it's not salty, and it's unstained. And when it runs through the villages and other things, it gets dirtier and dirtier. And when it reaches to the ocean, it becomes salty. So it's a stream of river. It's a stream of water, not one single body of water. Just like that, consciousness, unlike soul, which is eternal, that is not accepted by Buddhism. In Buddhism, we talk about consciousness, which goes from here to the Buddhahood. But when we say consciousness goes from here to Buddhahood, it's like a stream of river. It's like a stream of water coming from the glacier to the ocean. So it's a stream, and it's not one solid body. So today's topic is, thank you. Today's topic is very philosophical. So, the discussion is also becoming a little bit dry, and it's understandable. But the good news is there is one question from the Facebook Live, which is very practical. Why some people who are very kind and loving but still experiencing many sicknesses throughout their life? Okay, so I will give you an example. Let's say, okay, example today is a good example. So you wake up today and then you go through your day. You have a very, healthy regimen today. You had a good breakfast, healthy breakfast, and you have no quarrel, no fight with anybody. You had a good day. But maybe in the afternoon, like 2 p.m., right? You suddenly get sick. You suddenly get moody. How is that possible? You were so good today. You have a good food. You have a healthy regimen. You have a healthy diet, and you have a healthy mind. You did everything. Today was perfect. Why all of a sudden you get sick today? The answer is it's not just today, right? You either took something not healthy for you yesterday, and that is taking effect today, or maybe a few weeks ago you took something poisonous, and it's taking place. The effects are taking place today. Just like that, even though there are a number of people. One of the biggest argument for people who dispute Dharma practices that, oh, look at all the good practitioners, all the good people. They're always being oppressed. They're always being taken advantage of, and all the bad people, oh, like the crooks, the liars, the thief. They're enjoying their life so well. So this is like seeing everything in one day's. If you see a burglar, let's say a burglar, a robber coming from the bank, right? So there's a robbery at the bank, and the robbery. So on today, is Sunday here. So someone robbed the bank today, right? And when the robber brings the money to their home, that day on Sunday, they are very rich. They are having a very great time. But Monday or maybe Tuesday or Wednesday, they will be caught by the police, and then they will suffer in prison. So this picture we're not looking. We're just looking at today. Oh, the robbers are so lucky. They got away with $1 million. So this is the picture we are looking. We're not looking at the other things. So just like that, the experiences we are going through in this life are result of our previous lives' negativities. If you believe in the fact that the illnesses or the bad mood that you are going through today is a result of the bad things, the negative habits that you have kept yesterday or day before or a week ago or a year ago. If you smoke for so long, and if you do not smoke today, and you get sick, it doesn't mean because you stop smoking today, you got sick. That is not the meaning of that. You smoke for 30 years, and then one day on Sunday, June the 28th, you stop smoking, but then all of a sudden you are, you go to the hospital, you have a cancer. It doesn't mean because you stop smoking, you got cancer. It is all those 30 years, culminating together, and then that's why you got sick today. So just like that, the reason you are experiencing all those pain in this life is the result of all this smoking that you did for the last 30 years, which means you go to the hospital, maybe they will do the treatment upon you, and then you will be cured, which means when you are going through painful experiences, it means your negativity is being paid off. So if you have a debt, you have to clear the debt. So going through pain is a way of clearing off the debt that you have with karma. Thank you. So there's one more question, so I will give a quick answer. So Rinpoche, karma is non-deceptive. How shall we change? So a very good question. Karma is like a powerful flute, right? When there's a flute, it takes, it destroys all the villages and everything. Or the flute will go wherever it's directed towards. So what you have to do is you have to divert the flute by creating different channels. And if you want the flute to go to a certain way, certain direction, you have to dig certain channel, and then the fluid will go that way. If you want the fluid to go another way, you have to dig channel to another way, so on and so forth. So what I'm saying is, the example is given in this in relation to the fact that if you want to change your karma, karma means action. If you did too much negative karma, a negative action, if you do too much negative, if you commit to too much negative action, then negative results will come. If you want to change that, you have to change your action. You have to change towards meritorious, virtuous actions, and then the karma, which is like a fluid, will change its course. So if you change your, if you dig more channels, if you dig tunnels for the stream of karma, the fluid of karma to flow through, then karma will change direction as you direct it to. So if you don't change it, then karma will rush right through and destroy your village, your home, and everything. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. So today we will conclude here, and so if you have the dedication prayers ready.
Chúng ta có cái bài cầu hồi hướng chưa ạ? Chị Yên.
Ian, yeah.
I don't have the dedication slide from Pichela.
Okay. All right. It's okay then. Chanjo semjo Rinpoche ma ye panam ke yuru chi ke ba nyamba me ba ne kondo be so kare je bi ko be shingam so pen da te wa ma le jere ze wa den jin kem so yi sha be se de ba do thank you chi. Okay, Mizuma.
Cầu nguyện 5 dòng của chị Yên.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Giang Hương.
Chị cho bài cầu nguyện trường thọ. Pin 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 paper nam nam je
Thank you, Rinpoche. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Rinpoche.
Thank you everyone for your patience. Thank you, Hong. Thank you again.
Thank you.